Have you ever wondered what secrets hospitals keep hidden in their sterile walls and echoing hallways? What if I told you that the real horror doesn't come from life and death decisions, but from the shadows creeping closer when the lights go dim? These are stories of encounters that left me shaken to my core. Moments when I realized that hospitals aren't just filled with the living. Working in a hospital, you see the best and worst of humanity. People fighting for their lives, doctors performing miracles, and families clinging to hope. But there's another side, one that's not in the medical textbooks. It's the whispers in empty rooms, the cold spots in warm halls, and the unseen presence that makes the hairs on your neck stand up. These are 3 terrifying hospital horror stories that I personally experienced, and they will haunt me forever. Story 1. The Crying Baby. It was my second week working the night shift in the pediatric ward. The hospital was unusually quiet, and the soft hum of machines provided a soothing backdrop to the otherwise eerie silence. Around 2 a.m., I sat at the nurses' station, catching up on paperwork, when I heard it, a baby crying. At first I thought it was one of the patients, but when I checked the rooms, all the babies were sound asleep. Yet the crying continued, faint but unmistakable. It seemed to echo through the hallway, pulling me toward the far end where the storage rooms were located. "Hello?" I called out, my voice trembling. "Is someone there?" The crying stopped abruptly. I stood frozen, listening to the oppressive silence. Then, just as I turned to leave, the crying started again, this time louder, as if it was right behind me. I spun around, but the hallway was empty. Shaking, I went back to the nurses' station and told myself it was just my imagination. But the next day, I learned the truth. Years ago, a baby had died in that very ward under tragic circumstances. Since then, night shift staff had reported hearing the same cries, always in the early hours of the morning. I never worked that ward again. Story 2. The Patient Who Never Left. The ICU is a place where life hangs by a thread. It's also a place where death feels disturbingly close. One night I was assigned to a critically ill patient in room 7. Mr. Foster was a kind old man who always smiled despite his condition. At around 3 a.m. I went to check on him. His vitals were stable and he was asleep. I adjusted his blankets and left, but as I walked down the hallway I felt a sudden chill. Turning back, I saw something that made my blood run cold. Mr. Foster was standing in the hallway, staring at me. "Mr. Foster, how did you get out of bed?" I asked, rushing toward him. But as I got closer, he vanished. I ran to his room, my heart pounding. There he was, lying in bed, still hooked up to the machines, completely unresponsive. The monitors began to beep frantically, and within minutes we were performing CPR. But it was too late. He passed away at exactly 3:15 a.m. I told myself it was exhaustion playing tricks on me, but deep down, I knew what I saw. Mr. Foster had already left his body. He was saying goodbye. Story 3. The Elevator to Nowhere. Hospitals are full of strange, liminal spaces, but none are as unsettling as the elevator at the far end of our building. It was old and rarely used, but one night I made the mistake of stepping inside. I was heading to the basement to retrieve some supplies. The elevator creaked and groaned as it descended, but when the doors opened, I wasn't in the basement. The hallway before me was dark and unfamiliar, lined with doors that looked ancient and rusted. A cold wind blew through the elevator, carrying with it a faint whisper, "Don't step out." Terrified, I jabbed at the close door button, but the elevator wouldn't move. Then I heard footsteps, a slow, deliberate shuffle coming from the darkness. My breathing quickened as the footsteps grew louder, closer. Finally, the elevator jolted to life, and the doors slid shut just as a shadowy figure appeared at the edge of the light. When I returned to the main floor, I reported the incident, but my co-workers only exchanged uneasy glances. "You took the far elevator?" one of them asked, her face pale. "That elevator doesn't go to the basement at night. People say it's a doorway to somewhere else." I never used that elevator again. Hospitals are places of healing, but they're also places where the veil between life and death is paper thin. These stories are just a glimpse into the strange and terrifying world I've experienced. If you ever find yourself in a hospital at night, remember to trust your instincts, because sometimes the shadows hold more than just darkness.